fact.
Just answer. Please answer the question.
I don't think this is an issue this wasn't a State of the Union.
I'm asking you a question
Specifically, but this.
Can you answer
I'd like to talk about how we're not talking about the price of eggs. We're not talking about the price of gas. We're not talking about the cost of living or what the stock market did yesterday. We're not talking about what he's actually doing.
About the speech.
This is an issue, Piers, which impacts such a small percentage of the American people. The American people care about the cost of living. They care about the price of eggs. They care about the stock market crashing. These are the things they care about, Piers. Instead of that, we're talking about these side issues.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see from that intro, we got another Piers Morgan debate coming in, and we're going to have a lively one today, folks. This panel is chaotic, if you will. It's pandemonium in the studio, if you want to get into that. But before we do all that, I need you guys to do me a giant favor. Smash that like button for me if you don't mind. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you could, subscribe to this channel and check out my regular videos. I cover corporate press manipulations. We go over news, politics. We discuss all kinds of stuff. Bring a little bit of logic into your life, if you would be so kind as to share this video. That would also be great. That's the best way for channels like this to grow and expand and spread the word, spread the message about how the corporate press is absolutely lying to you. And, you know, for more debate content, you know, stay tuned. Of course, we're going to get right into that here in just a second. But, you know, to kind of address that, it is just funny. And I find it to be, you know, a bit of hypocrisy on the Democrats' part that right before the election, they were yelling and screaming, oh, the economy's just fine. Oh, it's just great. Nothing wrong with the economy to see here. And now all of a sudden, oh, Trump promised he was going to bring down prices and the prices of eggs are going up. You gotta love these people. But, you know, Democrats, that's secondary to their, you know, policy platform, if you will, is double standard. But, you know, what's also funny about the Democratic Party is they are answering some of the most interesting, burning questions of our time.
Am I a woman?
What is a man, Piers? What is a man?
Oh, a man
is
Donald
Trump a man?
Human.
Can I?
That's it.
Piers, can I jump into that question?
Adult human male.
Adult human male.
Adult human male is a man.
An adult human male.
Can I finally get
and a woman is an adult human female.
Yeah, I just threw that in there because I thought it was hilarious, as a matter of fact. Adult human male. Like, what is that exactly? It was hilarious, but let's get into the real debate. Check this out, y'all.
Yeah, Jojo, I actually want you to respond, but only after I've played the clip. So let's play the clip that Michael just alluded to about this young boy.
Tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Thank you, DJ.
Jojo, I've got to say, this is a kid who 5 years ago was given 5 months to live with brain cancer. I lost a very close friend of mine to brain cancer recently. It's a horrific thing for anyone to have, whether you're a young guy, whether you're an older guy, anyone. The idea that you could have a moment that heartwarming, which should be just a moment of levity, of unity for all Americans to go, you know what, that's great. Look at that kid. He's still here. He's living his dream, and he's getting this moment. The idea that that would be turned into a political protest by so many Democrats in the room who not only refuse to stand up, but actually refuse to applaud at all that that young man got his moment. I thought that was utterly reprehensible. Do you?
Well, here's what I will say. My heart goes out to DJ. I am a mom. My daughter is 12. Almost 12. My son is 15. I also have lost friends to cancer, and I I would have probably stood up and clapped because it was a very emotional moment. But what we are doing now, what is happening now, is that young boy's story is being used and corrupted for more political talking points to drag the
Wait a minute.
Democrats.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute.
That's exactly what you just did. But that's exactly what you just did.
Hang on. The corruption, if you like, the political corruption of that moment and that boy occurred the moment the Democrats decided not to applaud him. In that moment, they made it a political firestorm quite deliberately.
But let me ask you, let me ask you a question, Piers. What do you think does more for someone like DJ? Standing up and clapping at an address of Congress or funding childhood cancer research? Which one of those two things do you think will benefit that young man and other young boys like him? Because what is not happening right now is that the Republicans are... I haven't finished, but I haven't actually finished because I would like to just back up what I'm saying with facts.
You asked me a question.
I didn't finish it. You didn't let me finish it.
How much awareness do you think that moment has given to brain cancer in America? How much funding do you think is happening right now? How much funding do you think is happening right now as a direct result of what happened?
Is it enough to get DOJ to restore the NIH funding for pediatric cancer research? Is it enough? Because right now, that is what's happening. So you tell me, Piers, how much is enough attention to get Elon Musk, who now apparently officially runs DOJ, even though Donald Trump told a federal court that he doesn't, how much attention is enough attention to get him to start funding that research again?
And this is always the name of the game with Democrats, because every accusation is a confession. And I love using that because it's so applicable to exactly what Democrats do. You know, they have this beautiful moment here where Donald Trump makes this kid an honorary Secret Service member, and Democrats absolutely weaponize this by sitting there and not doing anything. And then Republicans are like, how shameful of these people not to do it. And then you get Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow, they get in and make these reprehensible comments online. Oh, well, I hope he doesn't die and blah, 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 blah. And they're trying to weaponize this moment as to fit their agenda or whatever, because they don't like what Donald Trump is doing with cutting spending and all this nonsense. And then I want to say, oh, well, you guys are the ones weaponizing this. It's like, no, y'all are the ones that sat there with your eyes closed, mouth shut, hands at your legs or whatever the hell y'all were doing, and didn't cheer for this kid who obviously survived brain cancer. And it's just reprehensible as to what these people do. And then they want to try to turn this around. Oh, well, maybe you should tell Donald Trump to turn back on the taps of money to NIH funding for cancer research. Now, hang on just a second. This is also pretending that the plurality of research funding for cancer, for all these programs, all this research, everything the government is funding, right? To act like that the private sector doesn't fund that 10 times over, right? Government funding is a small section of the funding that goes into the research for cancer, as a matter of fact. But they have to take something that should have been apolitical and turn it into a weaponized version, an ICBM of a political nuke, if you will, to drop in on the situation and utterly destroy themselves. That's exactly what they've done here, is destroy themselves. And what is that all caused by? Absolute derangement with Donald Trump. If, like, you know how they say, you know, oh, well, they're weaponizing all this. If Democrats would have absolutely stood up and cheered, just clapped, or just sat there and clapped, yay, go little kid, or whatever, none of this would have happened. Republicans wouldn't have anything to run on. Nicole Wallace wouldn't have made her disgusting comments. Rachel Maddow would have just ignored that and went to something else, I'm sure. Nobody would be talking about this whatsoever. It is simply due to what Democrats did, or lack thereof, as to why we're even speaking about this. And this is always what is going on in Democrat world. Let's keep going.
To condemn her words.
You didn't answer my question about the NIH either.
That's fine.
I did not say that. Condemn is an awfully strong term.
It's not my job to answer your questions. You're on my show.
No, it's not my job to answer for Nicole Wallace.
Or you
don't. It's not my job to answer for Nicole Wallace.
You've made your point. You made your point. Let me ask Brian the same question.
So can
Brian,
we talk about the merits of the actual speech now?
I'll come back to you. You wouldn't answer the question. I'm going to ask Brian the same question. Brian, would you condemn what Nicole Wallace said?
It's a ridiculous question.
So I'll answer your question, but I want to start out by saying this to what Jojo was saying. You have a bunch of Capitol Police officers that were beaten with their own batons, people that were convicted of seditious conspiracy. I find it interesting that MAGA Republicans find it convenient to only back the blue when it helps them with their narrative. I think that's what Jojo was talking about. Now, I wouldn't have said that statement either. But at the same point, I think I understand what I don't think she said it very well. I believe the point that she was trying to make is you have these Capitol Police officers. Several of them have lost their lives, were beaten with their own batons. Some of them have traumatic brain injury. But yet, why didn't Donald Trump invite any of those people? I'm just wondering. So you can't have it both ways here. While I don't like the comment that was made, I also don't like the fact that MAGA Republicans seem to back the blue only when it's convenient for them. I want to say one other thing really quickly about Michael.
One person was killed in political violence on January 6th, and it was a Trump supporter who was killed by a trigger-happy cop.
Okay,
so
I want to respond to that right now, and that nonsense that you just said.
Brian Sicknick couldn't be reached for comment, could he, Michael?
Brian Sicknick, hold on a second. Brian Sicknick died the next day. And for you to claim, hold on a second. Give me 30 seconds to make my point. Excuse me.
It's in the autopsy.
Give me 30 seconds. Can I finish my point, please, to what you just said? And all I'll need is 30 seconds to do so. If you are making the case on this national show that Brian Sicknick's death the next day had nothing to do with January 6th, then you are an imbecile,
I'm not making that
sir,
point.
with
The
all due
medical
respect.
examiner made that point.
Just look at what the scientists
What a hill to die on.
ridiculous.
Great job, Michael.
Let me bring in.
Great job.
I'm just
Michael.
reciting what the medical
I've tried.
Let me bring in Matt here.
False accusation.
All right.
Okay, so
let me bring in. I'm glad. Let me just say.
Shame on you.
I'm glad, Jojo, you now find things disgusting. It's interesting what you find disgusting and what you're not prepared to find disgusting.
The death of a police officer, Piers? We're talking about the death of a police officer. You're talking about the actual death of a police officer, Piers. I know you know that those pardons were wrong. I know you know that because you've said it. And I know that you stand with those officers. So I cannot believe that you would defend Michael Knowles dragging that man's life.
If you're asking me,
reading the news report,
if you're asking me for my opinion,
you can always expect a Democrat to have a double standard here, right? This is crazy. They are so enraged about January 6th and the violence against police officers on said January 6th, right? You gotta love that. Oh, they're standing up for the cops, the Capitol Police. But hang on, just 5 months previous, all of these same people were railing and screaming and gnashing their teeth, some people actually inciting violence against police, where some of their BLM protesters were out there actually burning police offices to the ground, right? There were many, many, many more police officers hurt in the Summer of Love than there were on January 6th. Because, yeah, sure, there may have been 140 police officers injured on January 6th, which it was a bad day for Republicans just in general, right? That was something that should have never happened. And we can break down the particulars of how it happened and why it happened and all that other nonsense, but we're talking about the double standard of Democrats right here, right? Well, you know, and not to say that Republicans don't have double standards as well, because they do, as a matter of fact, and we're not going to, you know, get outside of that. We'll discuss that when it's necessary, as a matter of fact. But, you know, you just got to love this. These people, they're so hardened. Oh, they're taking up for the cops here. Well, hang on just a second. Like, you guys were the same ones that were out there railing, gnashing your teeth about defunding the police just in general. Oh, well, let's rethink how we structure our police. How about let's send out some psychiatrists to a domestic abuse call, right? It's like, come on, this doesn't make any sense here. And it's just funny to watch these people go back and forth and actually try to excoriate Michael Knowles on this, who is absolutely correct. Brian Sicknick did die of natural causes. That was what his autopsy report says. There's nothing else you could say. Now, you could say maybe something that happened on January 6th possibly helped with that, but, you know, the autopsy report says different. And we could probably all agree that stress from January 6th may have assisted in that, right? Maybe he wouldn't have died that next day. Maybe he would have. We don't know. All we can do is base our opinions on the facts. And their opinions are not based in fact, because like I said, their opinions 5 months prior to that were, yeah, let's rethink police just in general. Except when it benefits them politically, then they're going to get on the side of the police. How convenient is that? Let's keep going.
That's my view. Let me bring in Matt here.
Here's, can I just finish
Matt,
my
point? The death of Officer Sicknick, though, sir.
All right, but
the death of Officer Sicknick.
Okay, let Brian finish his point, then I'll go to Matt. Brian.
I appreciate it. Just really quickly, 30 seconds. Going back to what Michael was saying about the clapping, I just wanted to comment on that real quickly.
Right.
There were a lot of people clapping when Donald Trump said that the war was going to be over in 24 hours. A lot of Republicans like you were clapping when Donald Trump said he was going to hire a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton and he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. Who cares if people clap? I don't care if Elizabeth Warren is standing up and clapping. You know what I care about is results. And right now, gas prices are up. Inflation is up. The war in the Ukraine is still going on. What's going on in the Middle East is a disaster right now. So you can stand up and you can clap, Michael, until the cows come home, but that won't change the fact that Donald Trump is failing this country.
Okay,
well,
Matt,
most people, over three-quarters approved of his speech, and his approval rating's above water. So
that's right.
Okay, well, 70% of Republicans think.
And also the clapping.
Hold on,
hang on.
70%.
Hang on. The point,
of
Brian.
Republicans
The
think
point,
that Donald
Brian.
Trump won the 2020 election.
Brian, the point.
Once again, here we go with the double standards, right? For this actual argument to make logical sense right here, you would have to believe that an election can actually turn around, make a complete 180 turnabout for the economy, right? He's been in there for 6 weeks, and these people are expecting the war to just automatically end, the economy to turn around and start being good, which, once again, like I said, double standard is always a thing with Democrats, because right before the election, according to all these same people, oh, the economy's fine, Republicans are just being ridiculous on this. You got to love the narrative coming from these people, and it's so easy to just sit back and shoot these narratives down because they just keep coming, and there's so much hypocrisy and double standard going on here that, that's pretty much the main argument of this entire video, right? It's the main theme of the video is double standard and blatant hypocrisy coming in. Let's keep going, y'all.
And they all think it's fine for trans athletes to destroy the integrity of women's sport. Explain that to me.
Sure. You talk about protecting women and the gall of them to be wearing these outfits, when in half the states in this country, a woman cannot get an abortion and in some instances has to drive to another state. Geography should have no bearing over a woman's body. So if the Republicans on this panel care about women and care about women's safety, then let's talk about the fact that in some of these states, if a woman is or the victim of she has to be forced to have that baby. What I want is consistency, Piers. I answered your question. I played 2 sports in college. Yes, I agree. If you're born a man, transition to a woman, I don't believe you should be competing with women. I've been very consistent on that. However, don't tell women what to do with their bodies. Don't tell women that it's okay, you should just drive to another state. If this is about protecting women, then you guys on this panel should be with me across the board and try to be consistent for once in your life when it comes to
Jojo, I'm going to you don't just shout when you want to.
On this panel.
You know what? As a woman on the panel, you just chose not to answer my question. You choose not to answer my question. Brian answer my question. Therefore, he has my respect.
This is
all
what
right, I'm going to go to Michael now.
You're talking about an adjudicated rapist who brags about
if we're talking about
pussy.
not telling women what to do with their bodies, then I would encourage you, Brian, not to tell the roughly half of women in America not to go take their bodies and drive to the polling place and vote for pro-life candidates, which is what happens. I want to clarify here. You're saying that the women on the Democrat side wore pink jackets. I'll try to clear it up for you. About half of women are pro-life.
It wasn't well said.
Put it in blunter terms so that you can understand it. But if you want to tell them what to think and what to do with their bodies, I suppose that's your prerogative.
I very much understand it, Michael.
Hold on one second. I have a question for you.
No one
I'm not
told
so sure
them
that you
what to
can.
do or what to think. No one did that.
My question is, you're saying that the pink jackets represent the attack on women's rights, but that the only 2 issues we're talking about here are abortion. I'm sorry. I thought that was your implication, that there was an attack on women's rights.
No, I mean, maybe I need to clear things up for you, Michael, because don't put words in my mouth.
Why were they wearing pink? Why were they wearing pink?
Go really slow, Brian. Go really slow for him.
Okay, I'll be very clear to you, Michael, and I'll repeat what I just said, and maybe you can get the MAGA wax out of your ears, okay? I'll explain it to you, okay? There are a lot of women in this country that I speak to, apparently you don't, that believe Donald Trump is a threat to their rights. Now, a lot of different rights.
Which rights?
Abortion is one of them, Michael.
Abortion,
so, Michael, hang on.
Okay, that's what I said.
There are women in this country. Michael, I'm trying to clear it up for you.
Something called the SAVE Act, Michael.
I need another 20 seconds.
Including your pro-life women.
Okay.
Michael, I'm
so
trying.
Far you've agreed
Michael,
with
hang
me.
on. Michael, I'm trying to clear it up for you, as you just said, okay?
Thank
so
you.
I understand you're obsessed with this transgender issue, but even though it probably doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, I'm glad you've clarified.
He's trying to answer you.
No, you were not. You were not totally right. You're totally wrong.
Right. So I just.
You're not letting me even answer your question. You keep interrupting
no one
me.
can hear. If you talk over each other, nobody hears any of you. So
let me finish, Michael.
Brian, finish your point, then Michael, you respond.
The point I was trying to make is that if the idea with transgenders and women's sports is about women's safety, which I do tend to agree with, then you should also agree with the fact that women in this country, some of whom are raped or victims of are forced to have that baby. If you care about women's rights and women's safety, then let's do it across the board, Michael. Did I clear that up for you, Michael?
All right, Michael.
You cleared up that what I said was right. So I guess my question then is, if the pink represents the Democrats' advocacy of abortion and transgenderism in children, then what you're saying is that women's rights to Democrats are the right to kill their own children and to castrate the ones who survive.
Here
is
we
that
go.
right? Do I have that right?
To kill their own children. That's your.
Don't even answer that.
That's what abortion is.
No, hold on. I'll answer it. That's your definition
it wasn't a question,
of
it was a
what
statement,
a legal abortion
you can answer
is.
If you like.
Okay?
But you let those kids grow up and
to your
get killed in a school
stupid
shooting, right, Michael? That's how pro-life
Say it again. Sorry.
Hang on.
Well, you gotta love all this, right? Michael Knowles does an excellent job at taking what the guy says, logically placing everything, and then spitting it back to him, and he doesn't even understand it. He doesn't agree. No, I disagree. Well, that's what you just said. Basically, my guy. That is exactly what you just said. This is the Democrat Party platform. They ask people to kill their own kids, for crying out loud. That is what they are doing. They don't believe they're doing that. They have to make all these logical deductions and, try to work around the facts here to make an argument to get out from underneath that. But that is exactly what you're doing. Now, most people do believe, with the exceptions, right? We all know the exceptions that we're talking about here. The big three or whatever. Now, most people believe in those. Now, some states, sure, they have outlawed that. And personally, I don't think that's right, in my opinion. But you gotta love breaking all these arguments down. This is what they're doing. You're basically telling somebody, right? It's the choice between the rights of the mother and the rights of the unborn here. And this is going to be an argument for all eternity, I believe, until we change the culture. This is what we need to do, is change the culture. We need to make people understand that, sure, we need to respect the rights of the mother on these issues. Right? Nobody's disagreeing with that, as a matter of fact. But we also need to recognize the rights of the human that was just created. This is the pro-life movement, as a matter of fact. We need to understand these rights and recognize that this is a human being that's been created, and blah, 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 blah. And we could go on with that argument forever, but I just love how they break all these arguments down. And I love how they're trying to invoke all this other nonsense to try to clarify their positions when Michael Knowles absolutely broke it down for them. But they get mad about that, y'all. They get mad and get all pissed off and want to yell and scream. No, that's not what I meant. We're women's rights over here. Well, it's only about half of the women, as Michael Knowles pointed out. And you know what? You're not standing up for all women, because there's a lot of women that believe that are conservatives, as a matter of fact. So what do you do with those women, as a matter of fact? We are standing up for the rights of women, but we need to find some sort of clarity on these issues. Like, how come we keep talking past ourselves? That's what I would really love to know, is how come we can't seem to break these arguments down to where both people can see what is actually going on and actually come to the table. Like, this issue should not be a contentious issue, if you know what I mean, right? We should not be able to not recognize the rights of one while fully recognizing, standing up for social justice for the rights of the other, right? Sure, this person has been on the earth for a long time, and they're an adult, blah, 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 whatever. They have all the rights that are given by God, by the way. But anyway, outside of that, they don't recognize the rights of the child. This, I think, in my honest opinion, the Supreme Court needs to answer this, right? And some people would say that Roe versus Wade kind of answered that, but it kind of didn't, did it? It didn't actually recognize the rights of the unborn child. This needs to be adjudicated, in my opinion. This needs to be worked out, because then once it becomes adjudicated that, yes, these people, and that's what they are. It's not a fetus. It's not a clump of cells. It's none of those things. It is a person, right? And the only difference between that person and the person whose rights you are standing up for is a stretch of time. A few months at best. That is the only difference. And location, as a matter of fact. Which, that's a whole nother separate argument on this. But I think it needs to be adjudicated. I think it needs to go to the Supreme Court. And we need to address personhood when it comes to the unborn. Right? Like, this would change a lot in this country, I do believe. I mean, this would absolutely erode this issue from being discourse, as a matter of fact. Because if we can change the moral structure of how we view the unborn, yeah, the pro-choice argument kind of goes away at that point, right? We could all come to an agreement that a lot of people, even conservatives, outside of your most staunch pro-life people, but even still, a lot of those, I think they could come to a consensus that, okay, we could give a few weeks, 6-8 weeks, right? Most people would agree with that. But that's not good enough for Democrats, as a matter of fact. Anything is never good enough, right? It's always, let's keep pushing, let's keep pushing, let's keep pushing. And this is the classic progressive versus conservative argument in this country. And I always bring it back to, we need this dichotomy in this country. Absolutely need this dichotomy. Otherwise, we stagnate. If the country was nothing but conservatives, we would absolutely stagnate. We can't have that. I don't like that idea myself. I've got a little progressive in me, if you will. But we need the progressives, right? Because progressives show us where to go. Conservatives figure out if we're even going to go in that direction and how to get there if we are going to go, right? And that's always been my frame of mind when looking at these issues, right? So this needs to be adjudicated, in my opinion. But getting back to Michael Knowles, I just love how he breaks all this down. And he actually logically takes their argument and gives it back to them concluded, right? Because their argument's kind of all over the place, in my opinion, on this. Oh, well, trans rights and women's rights. Well, hang on with that trans rights stuff just a second. Let's back up. What do you mean trans rights? And it's so convenient for them to come out and say, well, no, I don't agree that men should be playing in women's sports. However, trans rights. What are these so-called rights that we need to work out here? Because in my view, all humans get the same rights. So why should one group get more rights? And if they're not getting more rights, what rights do they not have that everybody else has? I can never, ever, ever get an answer to that question. Nobody ever answers that. Absolutely. They'll address something else I said, but nobody can ever answer this. How come we are constantly talking about trans rights and all these other rights and blah, 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 blah? Well, hang on. Wasn't all that addressed with the Civil Rights Act? All that was absolutely addressed with the Civil Rights Act. Now what progressives are doing, since we've pretty much solved all of these issues between races, between genders, blah, 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 they don't have anywhere to push. So now they're trying to push into boundaries that we shouldn't go there. Yeah, and conservatives had come to a hard stop on this. This is why Democrats are losing so bad right now, because they're trying to keep going with these ideas. And, conservatives are like, no, just blanket, no. Most people agree, no, we've made the logical arguments. And you guys, the progressives, y'all need to stop with all this. You need to realize that you're not going to be able to push because there's nowhere to go at this point with these issues. We've already worked these issues out. You get to the abortion issue, sure, we've got somewhere to go. Like I said, this needs to be adjudicated by the Supreme Court. And they need to find, in my earnest opinion, they need to find that these babies, these unborn people, are actually people. They have personhood. Just because they are not born yet does not mean, you want to wait till there's a heartbeat and brain forming and all that nonsense. That's fine with me. I could fall somewhere in the middle on that. I'm not a staunch pro-life on that. I do agree. I will be a little bit lenient with this one, right? Honestly, I do believe that life begins at conception, but I also understand the position of the liberals on this one that, yeah, we don't like the government telling us what to do with our body. I try to be consistent on this, right? Because that's one of those, bodily autonomy things. If I don't want you pushing your vaccines, I don't want to have to forced to take anything, which, by the way, I'm not anti-vax. By the way, I just, certain ones I might not want to look at. I might want to talk to a doctor first, which, by the way, that's always a good idea. If you ever have any questions on any of these issues, always go talk to your doctor. Don't listen to some guy on the internet, right? He may make a logical argument that makes sense to you. However, he might not be a medical doctor and he might not have all the information because everybody is different. So always be sure and go talk to a doctor first. But outside of that, I understand the bodily autonomy thing. We can't have the government dictating what somebody can do with their body. Now, we could go in all kind of directions on this, right? There's several directions because this certain issue is a slippery slope in all directions. It's one of those omnidirectional 360-degree slippery slopes. Those are very dangerous because you start going too far in one direction. Yeah, there you go. You go back in the other direction and there you go, right? So we want to find balance between bodily autonomy and bodily autonomy, if you know what I mean, because, we've got to think of the rights of two people in this instance, not just the one. And this is Democrats are taking up for the one, and I think conservatives are taking up for both, in my opinion. They're trying to balance both the rights, the life of the child, the life of the mother, and the life of the father in that instance too. But that's another thing, men don't have that choice at all. Absolutely, we don't have that choice. But I do wish we could get some liberals that would actually bring some substance to this, that would actually bring some clarity to their position. Because you can't just scream, the rights of the woman. You don't want to have the government telling a woman what to do with her body. Well, sure, but what does that even mean? You're neglecting the other body that is forming inside of there. Just totally neglecting that outright, in my opinion, my earnest opinion. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Because this is one of those discussions that I think these ideas need to be worked out with some civility, if you will. We don't need to get hyperpolarized. We don't need to get all mad and angry. We need to sit down, listen to each other on this one. Once again, like I said, I think this needs to be adjudicated in the Supreme Court because, yeah, we need to decide personhood. We've done this for several issues. Don't know why we can't do it with this one. This one absolutely can go to the Supreme Court, and we can make laws based around that precedent that's set on that. And Roe versus Wade was not good. This is why it was overturned, because now it goes back to the states. But I think, I've not always been at this position. I've only recently came to this position, back when Trump was talking about overturning Roe versus Wade. And I'm trying to exit, but trying to end the video, and here I go again. When he said to overturn Roe versus Wade, bring it back to the states, I'm like, yes, more states' rights. But no, I think because we're dealing with actual personhood here, yeah, I think this needs to be adjudicated and mandated federally, as a matter of fact. But once again, y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button. And we've got memberships now. If y'all want to help the channel out, help me to grow, I would be deeply appreciative of that if y'all could do that. That would be the best thing you could do for me. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That always helps too, word of mouth. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your boss. As a matter of fact, hey, go check this guy out. Entertaining, blah, 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 whatever it may be. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay logical. Peace.